One of the best endgame setups is seeing a major devaluation. It's still viable, but for a lot of people, the requirements just jump by 10 times. So instead of 100K, you might need a million in the bank now. We'll look at the history, how we got here, what happened, and also some alternatives. Big favor before we dive in is to give us a thumbs up to help with the algorithm. If you know someone that's impacted, then share this with them. Let's rewind and understand the program a bit more. Bank of America launched Preferred Rewards back in September of 2014. This was very much a game changer at the time. The goal was to get wallet space and gain loyalty, but also to make more inroads within the wealth management side of things. It does make sense given how the program is structured. Initially, it launched with 3 different levels. For Gold tier, you had to have 20K in assets to just under 50K. Platinum was 50K to just under 100K, and then Platinum Honors was 100K and up at the time. The draw was that it wasn't dead money. Yes, you could have it in your checking account if you want to, but it didn't have to be in there, it could be in your investments. Money that was in your Merrill Lynch brokerage, so investments, would count towards this, whether you had an investment advisor or you were self-managed. Okay, sounds super complicated, why bother with this? The main draw was that the higher level you were, the greater the bonus you would get on your credit cards. So if you were just a member, but you had an active checking account, then it was 10%. With Gold tier, it was 25%, Platinum would be 50%, and then Platinum Honors, a whopping 75%. Even though that was just on their core cards, it added up pretty fast. For example, for some of their cards, it meant that 3% became 3.75%, 4.5%, or an insane 5.25%. So you could become 3.5% and one could become 1.75%. Mind you, these do have caps, so the 3 and 2% had a shared $2,500 cap per quarter. Still though, given that you could stack these cards, 5.25% isn't bad, especially if your investment side is relatively straightforward. If you were just buying SPY, VOO, VTI, VT, or anything that's pretty similar, then it was an easy setup. Even on the catch-all side of things, it was pretty absurd. 1.5 became 1.875, 2.25, or 2.625. On the travel end, potentially even more value. We have seen competitors on the catch-all front, especially in the past few years. At the same time, a lot of them have found out the hard way that it's not really viable to have that level of cash back, even if you do have a bunch of investments. So for US Bank, they found out that you couldn't really have it as yield earning money, it had to be dead money, and you also had to set a cap for the cash back. For these banks, the rewards are pretty much marketing. They're dangling a carrot in order to entice behavior. Note that it's probably not just credit card spend because they wouldn't make their money back. So yes, they can make 2%, but if they're paying out 3%, the math doesn't work. It's also probably not farming interest given the clientele. If you have 100K, if you have a million, you're probably paying off your cards in full. We'll dive into this a bit more towards the end, but you have to ask yourself, why dangle that carrot? What are they trying to achieve? Especially if you have their top of the line cards, the numbers got pretty absurd. So 2 could become 2.5, 3, or 3.5. Everything else is 1.5, but up to 2.625. But it can get even better, and there's an extra step. When you're booking domestic or international airfare for any class, when you pay off points, you save 20%. Obviously, the prices could differ depending on the routes and everything, but generally pretty fair, nothing too crazy. Your mileage may vary, but a lot of people have found similar prices as booking directly. So for example, for a $1,000 flight, you would normally need 100K points to cover it. With 20% off, that's 20K points off. 100 minus 20 is 80K points to cover that $1,000 flight. Let's do some math. 1,000 divided by 80,000 points is 1.25 cents per point. That means that if you are redeeming it this way, then the numbers get even higher. For example, that 2 that became 3.5 is now 4.38%. That 1.5 on everything that became 2.63 is now 3.28%. 2% is a standard hurdle rate that you'd expect for cashback with no hoops and no weird fine print, and then maybe 3, and that's on the top end. Here we too have a lot of hoops, but we're at 3.28. Also note that this discount didn't benefit cashback cards, it was just on a points end given how it works. Also, all of this stuff was on their core cards and not on Alaska. It would be pretty insane if it was on Alaska, but sadly not the case. So all of this has been running smooth and steady since 2014. Fast forward to 2021 and they added 2 new levels. At 1 million they had Diamond, and then at 10 million they had Diamond Honors. For a lot of people, this was a big red flag. Especially looking at the numbers, the program at this point had a new level, but not really any new incentive. In a lot of ways, Platinum Honors and Diamond Honors were kind of the same. Why park a million with them when you could get the same benefits with 100K? It's not like this was a small difference either. It's 10 times more, about 900K. Despite that, both these levels had a 75% boost. I think a lot of us were hoping that Diamond Honors would have a 100% boost, but it didn't happen. Even then, everything kind of ran smoothly for the next few years. Hopping ahead 5 years, and we have the update that everyone dreaded. A lot of people are not going to be happy. Starting May 2026, they have some big changes. They're going to simplify it down to 4 levels: Membered, Preferred Plus, Preferred Honors, and Premier. The asset levels have also been compressed and simplified. Member has no minimum, but technically 0 to under 30K. Preferred Plus is 30K to under 100K, Preferred Honors 100K to under a million, and then Premier above a million. Okay, what about multipliers? Members at 10%, Preferred Plus is 25, Preferred Honors 50, and then Premier is 75%. As you can tell, that's not a good change. If we put the old and the new program side by side, we can see that 3 of them are staying the same, but 3 are going down by a step function. The main idea, especially for this audience, is what you were getting for 100K, you now need a million to get. The counterpoint is that even if it does drop from 75 to 50%, for a lot of people, it might still make sense. It's not a good change, it's a devaluation, but it's still viable. It's not the Smartly card. 5.25 becomes 4.5%, which might not be as competitive for some of the categories, but still makes a ton of sense for online shopping. 4.38 down to 3.75 on travel and dining feel like a bigger hit given people's spend numbers. Same with 3.28 down to 2.81% on everything else. That said, despite all these negative changes, they are adding subscription credits. You're looking at up to $8 per month for Preferred Honors, which would be the 100K level, and then up to a whopping $15 per month for that 1 million Premier level. It's probably not going to move the needle and kind of feels like an insult, but technically there. This change should happen on May 26, 2026. Note that there is some wiggle room of timing and how requirements work and stuff, but I'm kind of hesitant to talk too much about it because it's an easy fix. One thing to note is that the business program is not being changed, at least for now. I wouldn't be surprised if it happens in a year, but also could be 3 or 5 years, given how long it's taking them to do changes. Yeah, main idea is that you probably want to move more money to Bank of America if you do want that 75% boost. If you are looking to leave, then there are a few alternatives that might make sense. If you're looking for a one and done setup, then the Robinhood Gold card is probably your best bet. 3% cashback on everything and no annual fee. You do need to have a Robinhood Gold subscription, which is $5 per month or $50 per year, but you also get 1K in interest-free margin, and you can just stick into SCOV. I guess it does depend on the rates, but it still generally works out. Yeah, pretty common strategy there, and it lowers the effective fee by a lot. There is a pretty fair question of whether it's sustainable, but 3% at least feels fine compared to 4%, which doesn't seem that smart. One of the big complaints on the Robinhood end is that you do need sizable assets to get the card. For example, some people with 200K had to jump through hoops before they got an invite link. An often mentioned target is 1 million in assets in order to kind of skip everything. To be fair, as of 2026, it does feel like they are lowering expectations, and I have seen people squeak by with 100, 200K, so it might be easier now. If you are considering going down this route, I would not transfer money into Robinhood solely in order to get the card. The main reason being that they oftentimes have pretty aggressive bonuses for transfers, and you don't want to miss out. For a lot of people, the main point of their investments is chasing these bonuses. They oftentimes also have promotions for crypto and equities. So for example, if you have 7 million sitting around, that's already just in ETFs anyways, and you're transferring in kind, then moving it over could yield you 145K as a bonus. Schwab might give you some money to retain you, but it's oftentimes not as much. So for example, 5K when the other bonus might be 100 or 200K. In the past few years, Robinhood has been pretty aggressive chasing this higher clientele. From my understanding, they've been pretty successful at it as well. They've also been adding a lot of private banking features like estate planning if you have more than $1 million with them. Yeah, especially in the late game, if you do have that sizable balance, it makes sense to hunt for these bonuses. If you are looking for brokerage and investing bonuses, then check out AskSebby.com/investing to see the current offers. If you don't feel like moving your money around or you're still powering up, then I consider the card setups. Especially for someone into points and miles and you're looking for the upside, then these still might make more sense over the Robinhood card. Looking at the landscape, Citi feels like one of the best off-ramps. In this case, the Citi trifecta. The Citi Strata Premier card for the 10K points on hotels, car rentals, and attractions booked on citytravel.com, and 3x on air travel and other hotel purchases, restaurants, supermarkets, and also gas stations and EV charging stations. Number 2 would be the Citi Custom Cash card, where you get 5% back on your top spend category and up to $500 in spend per billing cycle. Lots of options here, including restaurants, gas stations, grocery stores, select travel, select transit, select streaming services, drugstores, home improvement stores, fitness clubs, and live entertainment. Number 3 is a catch-all. Citi Double Cash card for 2% unlimited cash back on everything, 1% when you buy and 1% when you pay off the card. There is a $95 annual fee on one of the cards and no annual fee for the other two. And even on that card, there is a hotel credit. Probably one of the most underrated setups in 2026, especially if you don't want to manage a bunch of credits. Also, if you do want to level this up, it's not uncommon to add additional Citi custom cash cards, and you can have, let's say, 3, 4, 5 of them, and it still works. The Capital One Dual is also worth looking into. Card number 1 is more for the travel multipliers and everything else, and also lounge access, also comparably reasonable annual fee, and relatively easy to use credit. Card number 2 is 3% back for grocery stores, dining, entertainment, and popular streaming services. The benefit of these two setups is that you don't need to park 100K, let alone $1 million, with these banks in order for the setup to work. Outside of this, there are a lot of other options that can work in today's world, and it doesn't hurt to try something else. On a side note, if you are someone that wants to learn about cards, whether these ones or pretty much any other cards out there, and you want to support the channel, we have links on the website, AskSebby.com, and also down below in the description box. Make sure the links are competitive, that they make sense for you, but otherwise it's a huge way to support the channel, so thank you in advance. Okay, so with all that said, why did this happen? To me, there's 3 main possibilities. Number 1 is value of money, number 2 is the premium card exodus, and number 3, profitability and incentives. It might not be what you think. Okay, starting with the first one, what do I mean by value of money? The program started in 2014, and that's not really worth 100K now. In the same way that a round of chuck roast might have cost you 17 cents back in 1920, and nowadays probably $9 per pound. Looking at the inflation calculator, 100K in 2014 would be 137K now. So actually not that big of a change, and if this was the main issue, they probably would have just moved it to 150K, maybe 250K. Okay, but what about value of investments, given that a lot of people hit the status with investments? Let's say you park your money in a vanilla ETF like SPY. 100K in 2014 would be 462K now, which is a pretty big jump. Even if this was the issue though, then they could move it up to 500K, and that would make sense. It doesn't have to be a million. I think this might be a small factor, but not the main reason for the change. Another potential driver is the premium card exodus of 2025. Annual fees went up and they added a bunch of credits in return. For some people, it made sense and it works, especially if you live in cities and you already use the services. Or you're into tech and you've been using these things for years anyways. A lot of people though, especially new families and people that moved to the suburbs, didn't get value. A card that was good became just okay, and then afterwards became not viable. Even if credits go up, if you don't benefit from the credits, then it doesn't make sense. A lot of people are looking for a landing pad, and Bank of America had the perfect one. Transfer partners are nice when you're 1 or 2 players, but it's a lot tougher when you have 3 or 4 players. Even better is that a lot of people in this position now qualified for the 75% bonus. From Bank of America's perspective, this is a great thing. You have more customers coming in and you didn't have to change anything. The question for them though is, are these the right customers? This leads to the number 3, profitability and incentives, and also why I think they made the change. The point of banks offering this is to build a better relationship and to cross-sell you. So instead of just banking with them, instead of just having your cards with them, get a mortgage with them, get a car loan, and ideally move your investments over and have them manage it. Credit cards are part of the equation, but in this case, they're not the main point. In this situation, they're the loss leader, so they're the $5 chicken from Costco. They're using the cards as a tool and probably losing money on them in order to bring you in to hopefully make money elsewhere. The problem though is that a lot of the new people, especially the more savvy ones, weren't very profitable. If you're still watching this, then you're probably one of those not profitable people. Instead of having them manage your money, a lot of people in this group are self-managed. If you're just buying ETFs and they're not helping you with anything else, and they're not managing it, then they don't really make much money. In contrast, their managed vehicles might be 0.5 to 1% in fees. If you do more of the handheld stuff and more of the relationship-based ones, it could easily be 2 to 3%. It doesn't sound like a lot, but it adds up, especially for something simple. It's different if it was a hedge fund or something exotic, and in that case you pay 2 and 20, or if it was private equity or venture capital, but here it's just ETFs. Instead of SPY or VU or VT, you're buying the Bank of America equivalent. The main issue being that that one has more fees. My guess, and what I think happened, is that their team looked at the numbers, since they have a lot of this stuff, and they saw that a lot of people in the 100K level weren't very profitable. So people like you and me who are taking the carrot and not yielding them a return on their investment. As a business, the point of baiting the hook is that you're investing to hopefully catch a fish. If the fish in a certain pond is too smart and they're avoiding being caught, then that doesn't really make sense. You can't really blame the fisherman for going to a different pond. Yes, it is a devaluation and a negative change, but it's also a business move and it could be a lot worse. Here, at least it's still viable, and even if you don't like it, there are plenty of alternatives. Again, if you want to learn about cards, we have links on the website, AskSebby.com, and also down below in the description box. If you made it to this point, leave a fish emoji or fishing emoji in the comments down below, and I'll try to heart it and also respond. 3 questions. Number 1, what are your thoughts on the change, and are you affected? Number 2, if you were switching setups, which one would you switch to? Lastly, number 3, do you think the Robinhood card is going to devalue their program as well, or stay steady at 3%? I feel like for me, that's the big question mark, but kind of curious what everyone else thinks. Let me know and everyone else know in the comments down below. Big favorite thumbs up, share this, but otherwise hope you liked it. See you next time.